welcome to the Real Life Podcast. We are so glad you're tuning in today on our special election podcast. Woo! Yes, we are going there since the next day. Tomorrow is the election. So, I'm your host, Dale Satram. If you're brand new to this, and you're my amazing Katie, co-host Katie, co-host Katie Jones.
That's my name.
Woo! Yeah, we could just change it.
First name amazing, last name amazing.
Katie and Dale. So we're glad you're here.
Yes, absolutely. This is very timely.
Yes, it is.
This is a good one. So
yes, it is.
And you guys are getting the real raw today.
Well,
you couldn't tell if YouTube is working. It's a crazy morning.
So I didn't know if you were willing to go there.
I'm an open book on most things.
Because I was going to go there anyway.
Yeah,
whether you were ready or not.
I do it to you all the time.
Katie, how you doing? Because it's been an interesting morning.
It has. You know what? I have a sick kiddo. And I called out today, but the Lord had other plans for me. So I have amazing coworkers that worked out and came to my house to watch my sick kiddo while I am here. So if I have a little bit of a flustery brain, that's where I'm at. I told Dale, I'm like, it's a dichotomy. I feel guilty and grateful at the same time. You know, we got the mom guilt going, but you also, I'm grateful, and I know this is a very important episode to cover in a timely manner. So.
And my coworkers pretty much said, because I was ready to come in here, she sent me all the stuff, and I was gonna do this by myself.
Yep.
You know, and so I'm frantically going over some things to talk about, and I got into the office, and they pretty much said, PD, no, don't do this yourself. Yeah, speaking of confidence, I don't know. So they problem solved so she could be here. So obviously.
I had all faith in you. Yeah, well, in honesty, our plan was for you to bring the encouragement, and then I'll bring whatever I bring.
Whatever.
So you might have just had the encouragement without whatever I bring. But,
come on. You bring the fun.
No, this is good, though. I selfishly, I usually need the episodes that we do. So I'm feeling the anxiousness a little bit. Less than years before, because I am tighter with the Lord this year than I was in 2020. So I feel that peace, but I still have that little bit of angst.
Well, let's talk about that, because let's just kind of jump in, because what are people feeling, and our listeners, what are you feeling in regards to an election that is hours away when this is going to get launched and people are seeing it? It's the day before the election, and so there's a host of emotions out there. What are people feeling, Katie? Have you had conversations? I've had conversations with people.
Well, and I think people probably tend to recognize what side I tend to be on. So maybe what I say isn't the entire picture. I have friends that are different than me politically, but one thing that I always am a little worried about is a fair election. Just because, there's historically some things that have happened that made me question my faith in the system.
Let's just be honest. No matter who wins the election, there will be someone's going to be screaming fraud, right?
Yeah, it's so
no
true.
matter who. I mean, come on.
Absolutely. I know. Did you ever see it? It went viral. It was this video of the year that the first year Trump won, or the only one he won, but the people in the streets getting to their knees and screaming. Just so upset, just screaming, people get very wrapped up in elections.
They do.
And I do think over the years, you have more experience with me than this, but it seems like politics have gone a little bit less from policy into moral stuff. Is that true, or has it always felt like? Because I don't remember it ever being so even voting as a Christian and trying to figure out okay, how should Christians vote on this issue? What does the Bible say? And trying to go back to that, I feel like there's a lot of moral issues within our politics now. Government has kind of bled its way into values and morals instead of just roads and war and the typical stuff.
Economy and things like that, taxes and legislation and things like that. Yeah, I don't know. But then it also, it was true. And then it has, I think, too, moved more into a constant assassination of character. Whoever the opponent is, we're going to assassinate the character of each other. And then you don't even get to hear about policy. You don't even get to hear about, well, what do you actually think about something? And so
That's a great point.
I think it just, now you don't even know what you're voting on.
Right. You're going off of like, oh, they seem this way.
Yeah,
or,
which is really, it's kind of sad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think what it does too is then it just creates a lot more emotions in people. You know, we're not objective. We're emotional. We're making emotional decisions instead of objective decisions, logical decisions, and that, you know, some people might think, that's not true. No, come on, look at all of the political ads. They're all designed to create an emotional response.
Absolutely.
Everyone.
Yep.
So it's an election about emotion. And so I think this is why we're doing the podcast, because there's so much emotion out there. You know, there's people that they're fearful. They're filled with anxiety. Yeah. They're completely fearful of their future based on the results of an election.
Right.
You know, I get that to a point, but as followers of Jesus, really, is that how we're to be controlled by? We're to be controlled mentally and emotionally because of an election? Elections come and go. They happen a lot, okay? I mean, we live in America. There's lots of elections. We have lots of history with elections.
Yes.
You know, and so I think sometimes we think that what is taking place today, it's unprecedented.
Yeah.
Well, there are definitely some unique circumstances based on our moment in history. That's true. But I think the older you are, the longer you live, you look at a little bit of history. Mm-hmm. We've had some pretty crazy times in the past, and I think you actually did a little bit of research on.
I did.
Yeah.
It brings me comfort. Like I've told you guys, I'm slowly making my way through this Abraham Lincoln book, and I feel like we're polarized now. Like people are very black and white. You just nailed it perfectly when you said we're run by our emotions.
Yeah.
And even down to like journalism, you never know, like, how am I for sure that this is a completely accurate news article?
Yep.
Or, you know, so it's hard to find, but I did make note of a couple historical things that maybe will bring you a little bit of peace as well. Peace, or I don't know if that's the right word.
Perspective. At least
yep.
perspective.
Yep. So 1860 in the U.S., so Abraham Lincoln becomes president. He only got it through the electoral vote. So 40% of people voted for him. The other 60% did not. And right after he won, 7 states voted to leave America, essentially secede, which started the Civil War officially. 1876 was a weird one because they ended up. So this is all from the history website, History Channel website. So Democratic Governor Samuel Tyden of New York won 250,000 more ballots in the popular vote than his Republican opponent, but he snagged 19 more electoral votes. But Tyden was still 1 electoral vote short of the required majority. So this is kind of still for 1876, so we're about 100 years old around here. 20 votes remained uncounted. Florida, Louisiana, and South Carolina remained too close to call, as each party accused the other of fraud, while in Oregon, an electoral was declared illegal and replaced.
Oregon, yay!
Yeah, right, that's us!
That's us!
Yes, so as the crisis mounted, threats of another civil war loomed. In an unprecedented move, Congress established a 15-member commission of senators, congressmen, and Supreme Court justices, including 7 Republicans, 7 Democrats, and an independent to decide the election.
So what's great about that is perspective.
Yes.
Is that we think that this is the only time where sides have accused each other of fraud, and the tensions were so great, they were worried about another civil war.
Yep.
11 years after that one ended. I mean, come on. So, you know, it's to put it in perspective, you know, elections have been messy for a long time.
Yes. That's what this made me think.
They've been messy for a long time.
Okay, we've gotten through it before.
Yeah. Yeah.
A couple other things I noted. Roosevelt, so 1912, he ran against his chosen. So originally he had chosen this guy to be his vice president. Then over time they had a huge difference. And then, so during one of his speeches, he got shot but lived.
Yeah,
so,
do you know that story? I love
the bull moose.
Teddy Roosevelt's awesome.
Is he your favorite?
Well, I kind of like the guy because I'm a man's man, okay? Yeah, I mean, right, Teddy Roosevelt's awesome.
He just hits different.
He is an amazing historical character. Sorry for the side side note here, but when he was shot, he didn't go to the hospital. He had a bullet in his chest, and he went to his. He was going to do a speech. He went and did the speech, and then he went. I want to be like that guy. Hey, that guy's cool.
Nobody
Okay.
take any shots at PD when
Well,
he's
yeah,
speaking.
yeah,
we're
not like that much, but
No, that is cool. The mental toughness.
I
there.
know.
We love it.
Come
okay.
on.
Okay, and then the last one I noted. Now, these are just a few examples. America has quite the history, right? But in 2000, I didn't know this. I was only 6. So.
Wow, just wow.
Yep.
I don't know what to do with that. Wow.
Well, so I don't even remember hearing about this, but the multiple recounts of Florida between Al Gore and President Bush.
Oh, yeah.
And he wasn't even officially elected because we didn't know until like the end of November.
We watched all
That
that.
blew my mind.
Oh yeah, that was a thing.
Wow.
It was a thing.
That was even comforting because I remember, like I think it was last election, it was taking a lot longer. And we were like, that's not normal. That shouldn't be the case. So it's like very helpful to look at our history and be like, all right, nope, it has happened before.
It has.
It has. So those were the only like election things I noted. But I saw this once and it brought me a ton of comfort because especially in 2020, I was like, I'm tired of living through these historical events,
Yeah.
I'm tired of it. But I was doing doing my research, and if you were born in 1900, which I doubt we have anybody that was born in 1900.
I was just past
anyway,
that.
Right. Yeah.
No, anyway.
So right around PD, a little before PD time,
just a little.
World War I, Spanish flu. They went through women's suffrage. There was the Prohibition, the economic boom, then the stock market crash, so the
29.
Depression. Yep. And then there was a Dust Bowl in the 1930s, like a severe drought.
Yep.
The New Deal, so that was President Franklin D. Roosevelt's, was right around World War II aftermath. So World War II. And so that if you were born in 1900, you've lived through all of those things, and then World War II happens when you're 39 to 45. Atomic bomb ends World War II. Then the Cold War in 1947, and then the Civil Rights Movement.
Yep.
And the space race and moon landing, Watergate scandal.
Oh yeah.
Oil crisis,
Woo.
and then the Reagan era was 81 to 89. Cold War tensions ease in 1980s, and then the end of Cold War in 1990. That's a lot of things to live. Those are huge things. Two world wars.
This whole Cold War thing, okay? In grade school, they would teach us how to crawl under our desks in case the Russians bombed us with nuclear weapons. You want to talk about traumatizing children?
Yeah,
of course, and now kids can't. Kids
No.
can't handle anything.
Right.
How difficult our world is. We thought we were going to get nuked.
Yeah.
For crying out loud. People were building bomb shelters, and so
That's
in their
not
backyard.
that long ago either.
Thank you. It was not that long ago.
It's not.
It
In the grand
wasn't.
scheme of things, no, that's crazy. So
I mean, that was typical stuff going to school in the 70s, early 70s in grade
Think about
school. I was like, whatever. You were born till decades later. I
it's
understand.
true. But this is very comforting. So
It is.
So we're not living through anything new, and I don't know if it was you or someone else that said there's no new sin under the sun, and that was also comforting to me. I'm reading Judges right now. That's
Oh,
pretty
great.
pretty evil time.
Oh yeah, that's some crazy stuff in that book.
So, yes, all that to say, not that we shouldn't care about politics, because policies matter, people matter, obviously, but my entire mood, my entire emotional stability should not be on a certain political candidate.
Well, we're making ourselves pretty vulnerable if that's what we're going to do.
Absolutely.
So
Yep.
I guess we should transition to so what do we do?
Yeah.
I mean,
Beautiful transition.
We know. Yeah, thanks for setting me up with that. That was amazing. Because right, this is a real life podcast. How do we follow Jesus in real life? And elections are real life. Or elections are real messy. This one is messy.
Yep.
So I was just asking the Lord, how do we do this? How do we walk through elections as a follower of Jesus because we should be influenced as followers of Jesus first, not our political beliefs.
Yes.
Those have to be submitted to following Jesus. We can have them. But sometimes it's like even our nationalism. You know, I'm an American who happens to be a Christian. No, I am a follower of Jesus who happens to be an American. I'm a follower of Jesus who happens to live in America. It's the other way around. Loyalty first to Jesus, and then everything else is underneath that. So, as I was thinking about that, I just kind of wanted to drop a few, just some bullet points, just some truth that might encourage you as we anticipate election results, whether we know tomorrow or a week later or or who knows when we'll know.
Right. Yep.
What should we be hanging on to? So, as I look at the Word of God, I'm always going to go back to what does the Word of God say? So, in the large picture, the first thing is just simply this. We have to trust the sovereignty of God. I know it sounds like a cliche, but we really do. The sovereignty of God means that He is in charge. He is in control. Now, God allows a lot of things to happen on planet Earth, but the reality is that God is still in charge. Our trust has to be in the sovereignty of God, His control over planet Earth and politics and nations, not in a political candidate. It has to be. Otherwise, our trust is misplaced. And I think that sometimes that's what happens is I see people's trust it's misplaced. They put all their trust in whether this person is going to win an election or not. And we should never put our trust in a person, you know, like that for our
Right.
future, because they're broken and they're flawed and they're temporary. And I mean, and of course, we know that presidents have been assassinated in our history. So I wanted to read a few scripture here. Psalm 2, 1 through 4. It kind of reminds us of how God sees things. But it says, "Why are the nations so angry?" Boy, don't you see that? They're just
I feel
angry.
that,
Yeah, they're just everybody's mad for crying out loud. Nobody can get along. So that's been going on for thousands of years. Why do they waste their time with futile plans? The kings of the earth prepare for battle. The rulers plot against the Lord, against His anointed one. It says, "Let us break their chains," they cry. "Free ourselves from slavery to God." Right? This country, no more. I mean, many people don't want to serve God. Other countries don't want to serve God. We don't want, we're not doing that. I love this. "But the one who rules in heaven laughs." God's not stressed. I love that they put human qualities so that we can understand God. So God has a sense of humor. God actually laughs, and so so He looks at the election, and not to diminish the stress. That's not the point. But it's like we're all worked up, and oh my gosh, the world's going to end, and God's like, it's not going to end until I say so. He laughs. It's okay. He's got this. He's got the election. Nothing's going to happen unless God allows it. Now, He allows things we don't like, okay? But just because something happens that you don't like doesn't mean that God is any less in charge of the situation.
Sure.
And even when it comes to the politics, the political leaders, the government that sometimes we don't like and we disagree with, Romans 13 says this: "Everyone must submit to governing authorities." Now, this is hard to read sometimes because I like to rebel. Now look at this. "For all authority comes from God." Ouch. Yeah, but all authority comes from God. And those in positions of authority have been placed there by God. Do you realize that if your political candidate that you want to win does not win, if the other side wins, you need this verse? Because you need to be submissive to God. So anyone who rebels against authority is rebelling against what God has instituted. So God can allow things. We have no idea what God's greater narrative is. We have no idea. So God could allow a candidate to be president that we completely disagree with. His larger narrative, because God is in charge of the whole thing. He's moving history from point A to point B. God has a plan for history. It's his story. He's moving it forward. Okay? So don't think that Democrats are in charge, Republicans are in charge, another country is in charge. Really? God's in charge. And if you think that people are in charge, God just laughs. He's laughing. He's laughing because he's the one in charge. So put your trust in a God who is orchestrating world events, even if you don't understand.
If you have someone listening, PD, that's thinking like, okay, well, what's the point of voting then? If God's all like in control, if who I vote for doesn't win, like what was the point? Do you have you ever had somebody ask you?
Well, absolutely, because you can go so far down the sovereignty of God idea that, well, then what's the point of doing anything if God controls every little piece and every little part? The Bible talks about two what feels like contradictory principles, but they are not contradictory in God's perspective. All through the Bible, we see two themes represented from Genesis clear through the end of the Bible in the book of Revelation. You see the absolute sovereignty of God, and you see the free will of mankind. Now those feel like they oppose one another. What they really are two tracks, like a train tracks, and they run parallel with each other, and they just disappear out there in the future somewhere. They're not contradictory, because God says it over and over and over again. I'm in charge. I'm sovereign. You have free will. So I try to explain it like this. Think of world history like a boat, big ship, huge ship. And it's going to leave the port, and it's going to go from this port across the ocean to this other port. And so there's history. The boat is world events. God's going to take that ship from point A to point B, and nothing can stop it from taking place. Nothing whatsoever. It is going to play out exactly the way God intended, because nothing, not even free will, can operate outside the sovereignty of God. But that boat, even as it's traveling from point A to point B, there's a lot of freedom happening on that boat. There's all kinds of free will happening on that boat.
Okay.
But the boat is going from point A to point B, and the free will is happening all over here, but it doesn't change history. It doesn't change what God's ordained. It does not change one thing, because God is sovereign. And yet within the realm of his sovereignty, free will happens.
That's a lot to like.
Was that little abstract?
Oh, yeah, a little abstract, but it's good.
I need visuals.
Yeah, right. We need a whiteboard. I am following. I for sure am following, and it did answer the question. So essentially, like, we still have a duty though to be follow. Like, we just don't know what the future is. So
we don't.
But we want to fight for the good stuff.
Yes, because our free will on that ship is going to determine the quality of the journey.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yep.
It's not going to change the end result, but whether I enjoy the journey, whether it's peaceful, whether it's conflict, whether it's terrible, whether there's abundance, free will. There you go. So does it matter? Absolutely.
Ooh, this would be a great episode, because you're making me think of the Calvinist like theology a little bit.
No, you just confused a bunch of people. Who's Calvin? Who's this Calvin guy?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Calvinists believe that literally God has already picked who's saved, who's not. Right?
Yes,
and
there are the traditional, what they call the 5 points of Calvinism. Well, that's a whole other series,
Sorry,
a whole other podcast.
It made me think of that, because I was like, we should talk about that at some point, because that's a very fascinating topic. So.
Yeah. Unfortunately, people fall in one camp or the other. They tend to fall in God is completely sovereign, more Calvinistic, or the other one's called Arminian, which is it's all free will. What people fail to understand is it's both. See, they're trying to harmonize a spiritual concept. See, if mankind would have wrote the Bible, he would have never put those two concepts side by side. It's actually one of the evidences that God wrote the Bible, because man would have harmonized. It would have been one or the other. God put them both together all through the Bible on purpose. Because in God's economy, his kingdom, those things don't contradict.
Yeah.
But it kind of fries our little minds. So we're always trying to
Yes.
harmonize the tension. Stop harmonizing the tension. God creates tension. He creates mystery. Okay? The church has always been trying to harmonize it. Stop it. Live in it. Sorry, another topic.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, it does kind of go along with what you're saying. So.
Well, it does. There's tension in what's going on. Embrace the tension. Embrace God's sovereignty. It's not about. It's just not about this candidate. It will who wins an election impact our lives? Of course, free will. Is it going to influence what God has ordained? Absolutely not. And that's where our trust needs to be. Our confidence, our courage. It comes from God steering the ship. Okay, relax. God's steering the ship. So sometimes it gets a little tense on the ship. Sometimes there's abundance on the ship. But that's all through history. It's been that way. There's nothing new going on here.
Yeah.
So put your trust in God's sovereignty. And then some things that we know, but I want to remind you. Keep loving people. Because we're called to do that. The defining mark of a Christian is love. Okay, they'll know you're my followers if you love. So we have to keep that always on the front burner. I mean, Jesus said that we're supposed to even love our enemies and pray for those who persecute you. So, I mean, we know this is what he's told us to do. So just because you lose or win an election, I mean, let's walk in love, let's walk in humility. You know, you lose the election, now you're angry, you're posting nasty stuff on social media,
Right.
or you win. And now you're posting and you're gloating and you're pointing fingers and I told you, you know, I mean, it's all wrong. It's all unloving. So let's love people. Let's be gracious. Let's be humble. Let's follow Jesus. Let's work for peace. Let's work for reconciliation. Come on. When there's winners and losers, all you do is polarize. Haven't we had enough polarization in our culture today? Let's stop. Followers of Jesus should be unifiers.
Absolutely.
Now we don't compromise our values, but let's try to pull culture together, not blow it up.
Yep.
So keep loving people, because I'm sure you're going to have opportunity. You go to work, and the day after an election, whoo.
Mm-hmm. Depending on where you work, yeah.
Depending on where you work, and you're going to have some fun conversations.
Uh-huh.
Here's the next one. Process your emotions with God. What do I mean? There's all kinds of emotions. Anger, disappointment, your fears about the future. I mean, there's a lot of emotions going on, and it seems like we want to process our emotions on social media instead of taking them where we're commanded to. Just cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Jesus says, you that are carrying heavy burdens, you know, come to me. I'll take your yoke. Well, in fact, we'll switch yokes, and I'll give you one, and I care for you. I love you. We don't do that as much as we should. And so are you processing your emotions and your feelings and your fears and your anxiety and your anger? Some of you are angry, you know, and are you talking to God about that, processing that with him, letting him help you navigate through it, letting him maybe even convict you over, I mean, some of you have gone from being frustrated to hating people, judging people.
Yep.
I'm going to be preaching on that. Oh, this will already be done. I did a whole message on judging others. Don't judge others. You know, and what does that even mean? So,
I know you have a couple more, but you just hit something that actually is crazy because I'm diving into a study called Untangle Your Emotions. It's a study I'm doing right now. And I just shared something with the group that I saw on social media. It was so good. It was something like, God can't break the chains that you keep calling bracelets. God can't, he can't help you through a season you're denying you're in, you know? So it was just all about like, yes, like we tend to deal with things all on our own without even, God's a back burner thought lots of times when you're in a season or you're going through a really hard emotion of some sort. But he wants to help you through it. But why would he if you're not going to him with to process things?
Yeah, and I think we live, I always say the person we lie to the most is ourselves.
Absolutely. Oh, guilty.
Yeah, well,
For
we
sure.
all are.
Yep.
And I think that's one of the things that I always pray for in myself, I pray for other people, is this, it's just self-awareness. Self-awareness is one of the greatest gifts God can give you. It's painful sometimes because you're going to see yourself as you really are. You're going to see your emotions for as they really are. You're going to understand why you have this feeling, why you feel this angst, this anger, this, and it's because we don't understand ourselves that we make our lives worse. We make our relationships worse. We become mentally and emotionally unhealthy people because we don't know how to process our emotions. And our whole culture is that way.
Oh, absolutely.
And so we lack self-awareness, and we lack the ability to begin to process even our emotions with God. We don't even know how to process our emotions with another human being.
Yeah.
And
emotions in themselves aren't sin.
Nope.
It's how we respond. It's because even God our emotions are a reflection of what God has given us.
God has plenty of emotion.
Yeah, throughout the
emotions
Bible.
are good.
Yes.
But I always tell people, your emotions are like your dashboard lights on your vehicle. They indicate.
Right.
They're gauges. They reveal things are good. They can reveal something needs attention. But I always say, emotions are indicators, not navigators.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's the problem with our culture is we're navigating by our emotions right now. And that'll take you off a cliff. Okay? Emotions aren't there to navigate by. They indicate.
Yeah.
So, anyway, sorry.
Yeah,
I digress.
Some would argue we're close to that cliff, but...
Well, and we've been close to cliffs plenty of times before. So we might be.
Yeah.
I'm not arguing that fact,
Right.
but God's still in charge.
Way to bring us back.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's good. We
All
need
right.
it.
Last one.
Okay.
Last one. And it kind of relates to what we just talked about. How does God want to change you? Why did you bring that up? Because that's always his agenda.
Yeah.
I mean, so God uses difficult things and hard things and emotions and usually indicate to us that I want to do a work in your life. I realize that we all want change. I mean, that's what elections are all about, right? However you're going to vote, you're voting for change. You're voting that the economy changes, your culture or society or policy or whatever it is. You're voting for change. So all the focus, there's no focus on us. It's all away from us. But sometimes God allows the difficult things, whether it's the economy, whether it's the politics. God always has an agenda for your life. And maybe this is a brand new concept, but God will use an election to grow you. So what is he wanting to grow in you? How is he wanting to change you? I mean, the Bible's really clear that he uses all these circumstances to grow our life, to change our life, to get our attention. And this is what God does. And so, again, as a follower of Jesus, I know you have aspirations for change externally, but what are God's expectations of changing you? How's he wanting to change you? How has this election pushed buttons in you, your flesh, things that you're not dealing with, your emotions, your character? I mean, really, you don't need to grow? You don't need to change? You don't have pieces of your life that maybe you're keeping Jesus out of? I mean, so anyway, how does he want to change you? So as the election unfolds, I'm sure we're all going to be wondering, and we all have opinions, and there's nothing wrong with all of those, who you want to see to be the next president, and then, I mean, everything else that goes with that. But at the end of the day, let's keep our trust where it needs to be. Let's keep our relationships where they need to be.
Yeah.
Let's keep our emotions processed correctly. And let's just let Jesus keep changing us and growing us. Let's be followers of Jesus. Let's be different. Let's not act like the world, okay? I mean, we know what the world's going to act like, but let's be different. Because if we can't be different, we have no influence.
Yep.
So, There you go.
Good. No, it was really good. And I think it's so important. It would be amazing if everybody is doing what you're talking about, for looking inward and figuring out what does God want for me? Where can I grow? Hopefully we'd even get to a place where maybe people no longer judge you based off who you vote for, but they're judging you based off of how you treat people that vote different than you, which in my book
says more?
Says a lot
about
more.
your character and who you are. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
I know.
It's really good food for thought. So thanks, PD.
You
That
bet.
was great. I
And
needed
thank you.
it, so I know someone else out there probably did too.
All right. Tomorrow is
Okay.
the day.
Yep, we'll be praying.
Lord help us.
Yeah, what are some specific things to be praying for, like as followers of Jesus throughout this? What would be some good prayer topics?
Boy, I don't know. In terms, Katie, there's so many good things to be praying about. I pray a lot for peace. It's just that we could be a people, a country, a society where we could just find more peace.
Yeah.
More unity. God would give us leaders that unify and instead of polarize. I don't know who that is, to be honest with you. I mean, really, I just don't know everything. So polarized. How do you become a unifying leader even in a polarizing environment? It almost seems impossible.
Yeah.
So, because you're polarized even if you want to unify. So I don't know. It just seems an environment that is so difficult to be in. So God needs to show up. Then I go, the church needs to act like the church. Because we keep wanting political solutions when all along the Bible says the problem with people is this thing called the heart. That's the problem. You will not be able to change culture and society politically. It has to be changed here. When this gets changed, we can do anything. So the church has got to roll up its sleeves and get back being the church again. Stop being weak and spineless. The church should be the most dangerous organization on planet Earth. Right?
Someone's going to take that one little clip out of context. So
Yeah, they will.
You better explain. Dangerous.
Faith is dangerous. Faith is dangerous. Following Jesus is dangerous because it does not embrace the status quo. I mean, Jesus' followers eventually, it took over the Roman Empire. It without weapons, without a gun, without a battle. See, it's dangerous. That's why communism. That's why certain countries, they don't want church. They don't want faith. Because Jesus was the most dangerous leader who ever lived on planet Earth. And now we've made church into this weak, spineless, safe, secure. Sorry, I really digress. But it should be something different. It's an adventure. I'm talking on, I already did when this airs, about why men don't go to church.
That'd be a great episode.
How about
I
that
would
for a
love
podcast?
to-
Why
yeah.
men don't go to church?
I'd love to hear this one.
Yeah.
I know it's for the men's breakfast, but you'll have
I'll
to
talk
give us
on that. There's a
ladies a little
reason.
sneak peek.
I'll tell you why. Because we feminized the church. Ladies, don't be offended, but we have feminized the church. We gear it for women because we want the church to be safe and secure. And I'll tell you, men are not wired that way.
And I think what you're talking about too, just so correct me if I'm wrong, like it's not that you don't want people to come to the
We
church
want them
and
to feel safe. The church
You're
should be-
talking about the internal stuff. We should be getting out. We should be growing. We should be doing things that are
The church should change the world.
Yeah, that's what you mean.
Not
Yes.
hide from it. We are
Okay.
engaged. We wade into the messy. We're not afraid of the pushback from the world, the culture. I mean, come on. Jesus was crucified, for crying out loud. The majority of his followers were killed in the first century. Okay, that's kind of radical and reckless.
Yeah.
And now we want to all hold hands and sing Kumbaya all the time. Sorry, I have sarcasm. Sort of not sorry.
Getting spicy. I know this will be a good.
It will be.
Good another one.
All right, let's get through the election first so we can think straight again, all right?
Yeah, maybe breathe a little
Come on,
bit. But
keep following Jesus.
yeah,
There
thank
you go.
you guys so much for listening. We've got questions from you that we'll be going over next week. So in the meantime, if you have a thought or a comment on anything we talked about or anything you want to hear that you can't ask on a Sunday necessarily, maybe it's too taboo.
Or I can't talk about it on a Sunday.
Yeah, or you can,
Obviously, I'll talk
but
about
you
it
can
here.
talk about it in here. here. This is the safe, secure studio. But we get into dangerous stuff.
There we go.
503-829-5101. Or you can shoot us a message at reallifepodcast@foothillsonline.com. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube and Instagram because we put stuff out on those platforms as well. So we'd love to engage with you on there. We'll see you guys next week.
See you next week.
Cool.